So you already know it's graduation season, so I came with a special look. I already graduated a few years ago, but I have a few friends coming out, and I saw this article a few days ago, and I thought, perfect time. So, um, apparently, undergraduate enrollment rates have dropped by more than a million students between 2019 and 2022, according to the National Student Clearinghouse. So they report most of the most collegiate data. Um, so what some initially viewed as a COVID-induced aberration now looks more like a trend. Many of us researchers thought, okay, this is a blip in the system. We're going to see some sort of resurgence of students shortly after, but unfortunately that is not the case, said Nicole Smith, chief economist at Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse shows that from 2019 to 2022, undergraduate enrollment dropped nationwide by roughly 1.2 million students. In 2019, about 16.3 million students were enrolled, and by 2022, that figure was 15.1 million. Smith called it the biggest record drop for such a small period of time. According to her, a strong labor market and many low-skilled jobs, increased compensation to attract employees may be partially responsible for luring high school grads away from further education. There's opportunity, there's jobs, and kids are saying, let me go get the money, said the economist. According to Smith, the long-term financial impact of not obtaining a four-year degree can be sizable. The difference between earnings of a high school graduate and a college graduate on average is about 1.2 million over a lifetime, she said. Other forms of higher education, like associate's degrees, can also boost earning potential, according to Smith. However, it's not the only path. Trade schools or apprenticeships can be excellent tools for career advancement. We found that many of those types of skills trades can pay more in the long run than some of these 2-year and 4-year traditional degrees. But for those who neither pursue a trade nor obtain a higher degree, Smith warns that less skilled laborers are particularly vulnerable to economic downturns. When the bottom falls out, the first to go are usually ones who don't have skills or are not as educated as the rest of the workforce, said Smith. According to Smith, making college education more affordable and providing more guidance and counseling to high school students could help reverse this trend of declining enrollment. So, I wanted to talk about something because I noticed a really large trend. Should I move here? Yeah, okay. So I noticed this really large trend in people online, particularly young people, and I would say like older Gen Z and younger millennials, and mostly men. A lot of in that it actually it stacks up because because women dominate the college sphere now. But anyway, so it stacks up because I see in the past 8-9 years, I've seen a ton of people online in my age group say, "You don't need college. You don't need college. It's a scam. It's just a money grab. You're gonna get out with just a debt." And these are people that are gonna enter debt anyway. They're gonna buy a car, enter debt. They're gonna try to pay it off with like a low wage job, unfortunately, and it's gonna take a lot of time. And also, college is it's a very different kind of debt, and I'm not advocating for it because, like they said, you can do a trades job, you can do an apprenticeship. I sent an apprenticeship to my boyfriend because it's in maintenance, and like, who doesn't love a blue collar man? But anyway, basically by telling students like, oh, you don't need college, oh yeah, just join the labor force immediately, telling high school students this, what is happening is that they're creating the new working class, because there's, as you notice, the middle class is balanced out and there's not enough lesser earners for capitalism to like continue to go. So the narrative that's being pushed, and it's being pushed to poor kids. It's not like it's being pushed to wealthy students. Well, I mean, to people that are raised in wealthy families. Those people are still going to school. They're still like learning skills. It's being pushed to lower income folks. And actually, that's wild because there's a lot of scholarships out here for lower income people, but they're just not telling you about it. So then, onto this NPR. This is from an Up First podcast on NPR. And it's basically about the same thing, but they just go a little more in detail and they talk to actual students. So, more than 1 million fewer students are in college. Here's how that impacts the economy. More than 1 million students fewer are enrolled in college now than more than 1 million fewer students are enrolled in college now than before the pandemic began. According to new data released Thursday, U.S. colleges and universities saw a drop of nearly 500,000 undergraduate students in the fall of 2021, according to a historic decline that began the previous fall. It's very frightening, says Doug Shapiro, who leads the research center at the National Student Clearinghouse. Where the new data comes from, far from filling the hole of 2020 enrollment declines, we are still digging it deeper. Compared with the fall of 2019, the last fall semester for the coronavirus pandemic, undergraduate enrollment has fallen a total of 6.6%. That represents the largest two-year decrease in more than 50 years, Shapiro says. The nation's community colleges are continuing to feel the bulk of decline, with a 13% enrollment drop over the course of the pandemic. But the fall 2021 numbers show that bachelor degree seeking students at four-year colleges are making up about half of the shrinkage in undergraduate students, a big shift from the fall of 2020 when the vast majority of the declines are among associate degree seekers. The phenomenon of students sitting out of college seems to be more widespread. It's not just the community colleges anymore, says Shapiro. That could be the beginning of a whole generation of students rethinking the value of college itself. I think if that were the case, this is much more serious than just a temporary pandemic-related disruption. Graduate program enrollment, which saw an increase in the fall of 2020, declined slightly, down by nearly 11,000 in the fall of 2021. Overall, enrollment in undergrad and graduate programs has been trending downward since around 2012, but the pandemic turbocharged the declines at the undergrad level. Many were hopeful that would-be undergraduates who chose to take a year off in 2020 would return in 2021, especially given the expanded opportunities for in-person learning. But the pandemic gap years appear to be a myth. The National Clearinghouse found that of the 2020 high school graduates who chose not to enroll in college after graduation, only 2% ended up enrolling a year later in the fall of 2021. The easiest assumption is that they're out there working, says Shapiro. Unemployment is down, the labor market is good, wages are rising for workers in low-skilled jobs. So if you have let me pause here. Unemployment is not down. Unemployment was not down when this was written. And I have a personal problem with unemployment data because it's not reported correctly. I've talked to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They use unemployment reports both CPS data and CES data, and it's just inaccurate. Someone could have 3 jobs and they're going to be like, oh yeah, there's 3 people employed. So yeah, no. Anyway, the easiest assumption is that they're out there working, says Shapiro. Unemployment is down, the labor market is good, wages are rising for workers in low-skill jobs. So if you have a high school diploma, that seems like a pretty good time to be out there making some money. Wages at the bottom of the economy have increased dramatically. This was making minimum wage jobs especially appealing to young people as an alternative to college. In December, for example, jobs for non-managers working in leisure and hospitality paid 15% more than a year ago, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's very tempting for high school graduates, but the fear is that they are trading a short-term gain for long-term loss, Shapiro says. And the longer they stay away from college, life starts to happen, and it becomes harder and harder to start thinking about yourself and go back into the classroom. So this is what I was talking about. They're making the labor market look sexy for these young people, and in reality, it's not working out that way. It's hard to give up a paycheck. For Brian Williams, who graduated from high school early in the pandemic, the long-term plan is to go to college. He postponed enrolling in 2020 because he was tired of remote learning. Instead, he got a job at Jimmy John's sandwich store near his home in the suburbs of Houston so he could start saving up. When it was time to enroll in fall 2021 classes, he postponed again. He says he was more interested in finding a job that paid more than in giving up his paycheck to go to school. In August, Williams left Jimmy John's and got a job at Amazon warehouse. His hourly earnings jumped by $4.50. I feel more secure within the money I'm getting, he says. To get to and from his new job, he bought a car, which he's working to pay off. He bought a car to get to his minimum wage job, and now he's in debt to pay that off. That's what I'm talking about. You were going to be in debt regardless, so you may as well have gone for a higher, something that would guarantee you a higher wage in the future. But for Williams, enrolling in college means he will have to cut back on hours and earn less money while also spending more money to pay for classes. It's so hard, he says. I'm just wow, if I go to school, I'm going to take time off and I'm not going to have any money for the things I need. They've already dug themselves in a hole, basically, by not going to trade school or not going to college or not getting an apprenticeship. It's so hard. Yeah, okay. He had toyed with the idea of starting community college in the new year, but is now thinking he'll start next fall to give himself another 8 months to save up. He knows he doesn't want to work at Amazon forever. Even though this job does give me the money I need, it's not enough for what I want, for what I see for myself, or what I want for myself. So I have to put myself through college. The short-term benefits of a high hourly wage versus the long-term benefits of a degree. A dramatic drop in college enrollment could spell trouble for those Americans who are opting out, as well as for their families. Research has long shown that getting even some post-secondary education leads to higher wages, lower unemployment, and greater lifetime earnings. In one study from Georgetown University, bachelor's degree holders were found to earn a median of $2.8 million during their career, 75% more than if they had only a high school diploma. It may be great that people are finding jobs in the short term, says researcher Tilani Breton, but an 18-year-old who is living at home and is helping his family with the minimum wage that he's earning, if he's still earning that wage 15 years from now and has a family of his own to support, what are the implications in terms of socioeconomic mobility for that individual, for their children? Their children are also more likely to not attend college. Like, that's just true. My mom was not able to attend college, but that was just a whole different reason. And she made sure as hell that me and my sister could attend. But seeing the people around me whose parents had the same situation, they didn't go to school. And it's honestly just it's very uncommon for children from backgrounds like mine to proceed to go to school. So I think you should while you can. Breton, who studies the economics of higher education at the University of California, Berkeley, says a host of other benefits have been linked with higher education, including an increased likelihood of civic participation, lower infant mortality rates, better maternal health, and a decreased likelihood of being unhoused or experiencing food insecurity, among other things. Many of those social benefits stem from a lifetime of higher wages and increased financial stability, long-term payoffs that can be hard to prioritize over short-term wins, like having a little more money right now. At the end of the day, the wages that you're getting today are one thing, but in 10 years from now, they might be really similar, Braden explains. They may not be the growth that you would expect when people get post-secondary education, but Braden also understands that it can be hard to make decisions about your future needs when you're also trying to meet the needs of today. People are in hard economic situations, she says. The recovery has been extremely uneven. On top of that, the challenges that existed before the pandemic for low-income students, students of color, and students who were the first to go to college in their families, those challenges haven't gone anywhere. Community colleges are the schools that traditionally enroll lower-income students, Shapiro says. So we can assume that that's primarily who is affected and staying away the most. When the National Student Clearinghouse looked at 2020 high school graduates, it found students from lower income had lower college-going numbers, as did students in high minority high schools. The gap in college access between higher income and lower income students grew wider, Shapiro says. The U.S. economy feels the long-term effects of fewer college graduates. When few people go to college, few people graduate with skills, credentials, and degrees necessary for higher-paying jobs, and that reverberates throughout the entire U.S. economy. This direct loss to the economy is the workers themselves, explains Tony Carnville, the director of Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. If they were trained and ready, they would get higher wage jobs and they would add more to the GDP, making us all richer and increasing taxes, reducing welfare costs, crime costs, on and on. When workers make also that. So people without degrees are also more likely to commit crimes. And it's not that they're more likely to commit, it's that of the people who commit crimes, people who do not have degrees are the most common. When workers make higher wages, their local economies also benefit. Carnville explains it this way. When you hire the crane operator goes and buys groceries, so the grocery clerk has a job. More and more jobs in the U.S. require some post-secondary training, Carnville says, which makes college graduates far more valuable to the economy. That's a nasty statement. Before the pandemic, the country also had a skills gap with Georgetown is just ugh. Before the pandemic, the country also already had a skills gap with jobs sitting empty because businesses couldn't find workers with the proper credentials. In the past decade, community colleges have worked to close that gap, partnering with local businesses to pair training with their employer needs. But according to Carnville, declining enrollment rates at community colleges means the gap is going to grow, which in turn hurts business. You can run your business if you literally cannot find people to work in that business, says Breton of the University of California, Berkeley. And when businesses struggle, she says, that has implications for things like decreases in tax revenues, higher prices for goods and services, delays in production of services and goods like we've seen during the pandemic, and many of the things will only get worse if there are few people to fill the jobs. Declines in college enrollment have compounded impact on the economy because there are economic consequences on so many levels, the individual, the community, businesses, and society as a whole. It's unclear exactly how to address the economic ripple effects. Colleges, for their part, are standing up reentry programs and creating new incentives to enroll. Valencia College, a community college that serves about 50,000 students in Orlando, Florida, waived application fees, extended deadlines, and allowed returning students to retake classes for free. For any student who failed a course they were forced to take online, it gave them a $500 scholarship to come back and take another class in person when things opened up. Shapiro of the National Student Clearinghouse says, local communities have the most at stake when someone puts off college because their local economies suffer when workers aren't qualified for the best job. He says it's on those communities to make the case that college offerings are worthwhile, and it's important for students to invest in their future, employability, in their skills, and training. Is he tired of all the bad news? Yes. Does he think these low college going rates are their new normal? It's a frightening thought. I sure hope not, but I guess we'll have to see. So I think I mostly said my thoughts throughout this video, but like I said, I do have a college degree. I have a degree in economics, actually. So that's why this is particularly interesting to me. And on one hand, I do understand the narrative, and this is a narrative that college students say. It's not a narrative that like non-college students say that college is useless, but that narrative exists due to capitalism, not due to the skills that we pick up. We say college is unnecessary because it unnecessarily excludes people, but that does not mean that we're not learning very important things that actually do help build and contribute to society. It's important in that way, but it should not cost money. And that is just what we mean. We mean when we say it's worthless, we really mean it shouldn't cost money. There's not a value that you can put on it, and you shouldn't have to gatekeep people from it. Like, everyone should just have equal access to education. But those are my thoughts. Comment down below what you think. Like I said, with this decline in college enrollment, we are creating a new working class, a new poor class. And in the next 30 or 40 years, these are the people that are going to keep the economy rolling. Well, folks who got degrees or like went to trade school or did apprenticeships will like be at the top of the economy. And it just is what it is. Or maybe, the U.S. is going to fall, and who knows. But see you guys later. Bye. I'm not saying fall, but